Hello everyone again and welcome to another booktube in this channel. This is Mika and in this opportunity I'm going to talk about two new stories. The novel is called The Boy in Street Pajamas, written by John Boyne in 2006, and the short story is called Humanis, which was written by Philip K. Dick in 1955. After providing you the summary of the stories, I'm going to pay attention to some specific points. Bruno, a 9-year-old boy living in Berlin, Germany in 1943, comes home one day to find his family's maid, Maria, packing all of his things away in boxes. Bruno's mother explains that the family is moving away due to the demands of his father's new job. The Fury, as Bruno calls Adolf Hitler, has promoted Bruno's father. Father is a commandant in the German army, but father considers that it's a great honor for himself and for the fatherland. The new house on a hill is the only house in a very desolate area. Bruno is sad to be away from Berlin and bored to have only his 12-year-old sister Gretel, whom he does not get along with, company. On the other side of the fence, as the child can see from his bedroom window, are thousands of people living in a sandy, fenced-in camp, all wearing striped pajamas. Bruno cannot properly pronounce the name of the new home, but calls it Outwith, but we already know that the correct name is Auschwitz. As soon as the child settles into life at that desolate place, he comes to dislike Kotta, a harsh soldier who hangs around their house and whom Gretel has a crush on. Gretel becomes very involved with history and politics and takes to tracking the events of the news via pushpins in maps on her wall. One day, Bruno walks along the length of the fence, despite the fact that he has been forbidden to do so. He meets a boy who lives on the other side of the fence, named Shmuel. Shmuel wears the striped pajamas that Bruno has seen from his window, and he is extraordinarily thin. The two boys become friends, and Bruno begins to visit Shmuel nearly every day. Shmuel tells him how he was taken by soldiers from his home in Krakow, Poland, to the camp. Bruno struggles to understand exactly what life is like on Shmuel's side of the fence, but complies when Shmuel asks him to bring him food. Bruno begins to like life at Outwith a lot more as his friendship with Shmuel develops. One day, he's shocked to find Shmuel inside his house. The soldier Kotter had brought him there to shine the family's tiny glasses. Bruno gives his friend a piece of leftover chicken, but Kotter catches them and demands to know if Bruno is friend with Shmuel. Terrified, Bruno denies knowing the boy, and the soldier later beats Shmuel. Afterwards, Kotter is later transferred away from Outwith due to the fact that he reveals to father that his own father fled from Germany to Switzerland. Eventually, mother convinces father to move the family back to Berlin again. Bruno feels very sad because he has to leave Shmuel behind, and when he goes to say goodbye, the boys agree that Bruno will dress up in striped pajamas the following day in order to explore Shmuel's side of the camp and to help Shmuel search for his father, whom he has not seen for several days. The next day, Bruno dresses up in pajamas Shmuel has brought him and climbs under the fence. Inside, he finds people sick and thin, with soldiers yelling at them. Scared, he wants to leave, but Shmuel asks him to help him find his father. The soldiers round up prisoners for much before Bruno can return to his house. Terrified, the two children end up in a dark room together. They hold hands as the soldiers shut the doors, and everything goes dark. Bruno is never heard from again. Bruno's clothes and boots are found where he left them outside the fence, and one day Bruno's father pieces together what must have happened to his son. I believe that all of us have heard about this tragical historical moment in our world and about the consequences in this tragedy. Auschwitz was a concentration camp in Poland in which millions of Jews were imprisoned and murdered. The German Nazi Party, which operated on an anti-Semitic rhetoric, used these camps to kill more than 6 million Jews between 1942 and 1945, as well as almost 5 million non-Jewish people, including homosexuals, Romani people, and mentally disabled. The German invasion of Poland was completely quickly. The German occupying army tried hard to restore daily life. However, some restrictions on Jews were imposed. For instance, they were banned from leaving their home at night. The synagogue was locked, and Jewish pupils were excluded from all schools where normal classes were taking place. Men were forced to work especially on Sabbath and on Jewish festivals. Jewish students were excluded from the exams in medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and law. Jews were also excluded from military service. Nuremberg laws deny many Jewish basic civil rights. Mixed marriages were forbidden. Jewish people were banned from parks, cinemas, theaters, restaurants, and swimming pools. What is more, they were no longer allowed to vote, and they lost their German citizenship. They were also forbidden to keep cats, dogs, and birds. Their passports were stamped with a red J, and sometimes they were removed to prevent them leaving the country. Jewish telephones were confiscated, and they no longer received ration cards for clothes. In 1941, they were forced to wear a yellow Star of David with Jew written on it. I'm really sure that most all of us have heard about the Holocaust or have watched a video or movie about that, but we really know that nothing compares to the cruel reality they had to face in their lives. Now let's talk about the short story Humanists and the advantages and disadvantages of being married. Jill Herrick and her husband, Lester, are in the middle of an argument. Lester deflects his wife's claim that he's hideous with cold indifference. He tells her that he will not allow their child Gus in the house, and will have him removed to government custody because he's interfering with his research. Before the distraught Jill can pass this onto the son, Lester gets news that he will be taking a trip to Rexo 4th. Despite Jill's desire to go there and see the planet, Lester insists that he will go alone. Afterwards, Jill tells her brother Frank, and she's going to leave Lester. She explains how happy she was being with Lester gone, and how she seems to be getting worse every year of the marriage, colder and more ruthless. After Lester arriving, he seems to be a very different man. He praises Jill's cooking and expresses disgust with his work on Rexo 4th studying toxins. He says he prefers Tara and being home with his wife. What is more, Lester now really enjoys spending time with Gus. Shocked and confused, Jill reports these changes to her brother. Frank has Lester brought to a lab for more studies under the guidance of the Federal Clearance Agency, and before long they realize that Lester has had his body taken over by a Rexorian. They want to kill him immediately, but Frank tells them that military law cannot apply on Terra. He's still a human body, so human laws will apply to him. Frank reports this to Jill, explaining that Rexo is a dying planet and the survivors are trying to escape to other places by taking over people's bodies. But there is a chance that Lester can be restored. His mind is likely frozen in Rexo and can be returned once the Rexorian is killed. But to our surprise, when Frank takes Jill to the Federal Clearance Agency, she strongly denies that there was any change in Lester. The spouses are enjoying a spring stroll. It is like an agreement between them. Jill knows that it's not the real Lester, but asks for permission to continue calling him Lester, and the Rexorian is now living a happy human life with his new wife and son. The Beginning of the story, we can see a happy marriage between two persons who don't value and respect each other. It is like a master and his servant. Jill is always doing all the labors in the house without any help from her husband. She has to tolerate his misbehavior towards her and even to their son. We can notice that, for instance, in the fact that Lester keeps working all the time and doesn't pay attention or care of his family. What is more, he commits emotional abuse, turning their relationship unhealthy and intolerable. Lack of individuality can be another drawback. Lester is arguing and complaining about anything all the time. And we could say that in this case, marriage tends to restrict Jill's freedom. She seems to be obligated to be concerned about all needs and wishes of Lester all over the time. But on the other hand, being married could have many positive things to take in account. A further advantage could be companionship. Life is enhanced when experiences are shared with another person who cares and shares interests and concerns with you. Now we're witnesses of how Lester enjoys playing with Gus and has a protective behavior towards Jill. He has changed from being a harsh and workaholic man to be the one who is kind-hearted and very fond of his family. Who knows, maybe he's a good example of how should we demonstrate our interest about the things we value. Taking all in account, I would say that despite of the fact that sometimes there are many differences in a marriage, the best way to have an enduring relationship is created when both persons put the pride aside and surrender their personal desires. So, to my mind, marriage has more advantages than disadvantages. So that's all. I hope you had enjoyed the video and see you the next time.